Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. So, end of 2020, beginning of 2021, right around the corner in a new year. There's been so many new champions added to the game. Happy to put 2020 behind us here. But a lot of new champions. It's been a really good year for Raid Shadow Legends, right? I mean, amongst all the crazy stuff going on in the world right now, we do have one glimmer of hope, things trending in the right direction. A lot of new, cool, rare, epic, and legendary champions added to the game. So what better time kicking off the new year pretty soon here with 3 updated lists of top champions in the game. There are some new top 5 rares, top 3 rares, new top 3 epics, and new top 5 legendaries in the game. So we're going to go ahead and make that content for you guys right now. Also in 2021, we will be deleting and revising some of our most popular champion guides out there, because the longer time goes on, the more kind of, artifact sets and everything, new game modes, new Doom Tower, things change in the game and champion values also change. So be on the lookout, subscribe, turn on your bell notifications, and all that content will be coming to you guys over the course of the next week or 2. So starting with rares, man, I love rare champions. There's so much value to be had in rare champions. A common misnomer when you're starting out this game is, oh, I pulled the rare, who cares, automatic trash. Same thing with uncommons. There's a few, way less uncommons than rares, but there's some champions worth investing into, not just for the early game, not just for the mid game, but for the end game as well. And that's where we'll start with the #1 arguably rare champion in the game, Coldheart. Nothing's changed there. She's so good because on her A1, not only does she have 100% heal reduction, but she also has a 4-time hitter. 4 times is really valuable to have on an A1. A lot of legendary characters don't even have that. Also has a decreased accuracy in the poison on the A2 and on the A3. Her Heartseeker, which is what it's all about, has the full turn meter depletion. Very, very good. Very, very good. And has a ton of damage based on enemy max HP on your Coldheart. You want to be building her with a ton of crit damage. Don't have to prioritize attack percentage as much as you would your usual average nuker. Coldheart, very good. Make sure you're building accuracy so you can land this Heartseeker ability. Next up, hey, we're right here, might as well. Let's talk a little bit about Painkeeper. Painkeeper is in my top 20 rares. She's really good because she's used in unkillable teams in Clan Boss, but that aside, she's still a really well-rounded, great support champion. Combat Tactics, her A3, on a 4-turn cooldown when booked, decreases cooldown of all ally skills by 1 turn. Really valuable. It helps all your best champions, your best supporters, your best attackers do more of what they do best. And then on her A2, a nice AoE heal, and she's a great candidate for a shield artifact set. I would advise you guys consider putting her in a shield set, building her with a bunch of HP, because the shield set is predicated on her HP as well as this heal based off her HP. This champion's HP, not theirs. So you want her with a lot of HP. If she has 100k HP, she's doing 15k heals every time her spectacular sweep triggers off. So that is Painkeeper. Anybody else in here? There's some good candidates, but we're going to give a nod to my man Kayle. Kayle in the top 20 as well. The best starting champion in no matter what year you're watching this video, it's Kayle, right? Has the weak version of poison on his A1, strong version on his A3, great for clan boss, great for bosses, great for dungeons, great for dragon, and then on his A2, acid rain, fills this champion's turn meter by 25% for each enemy killed. This makes him a great campaign farmer too. If he's killing 4 enemies, guess what? Full turn meter, he gets to go again. That is Kayle. Need I say more? Kayle's great, and as with all the starting champions too on Kayle, he has the HP in all battles by 15%. This is a great starting order for you guys if you're in the beginning of the game and watching this video. So moving right along here, we've already done 3 champions. Wow, we are blazing through this one. Let's go Undead Horde here, guys, and let's give a big shout out to our girl Frozen Banshee. Was she added very, very late in 2019 or very early in 2020? I'm not sure. Either way, a great great addition. She's kind of a specialist, clan boss specialist, dragon specialist. She has a poison on the A1, the strong version, provided the target is under poison sensitivity. And then on the A3, she lands that poison sensitivity. And then on the A2, we have fills the turn meter of all allies by 2% for each debuff on the target. That's Cruel Exaltation on Frozen Banshee. She also pairs pretty well with another champion who's not on our list in Grave Chill Killer. She actually has the decreased defense, strong version if the target is under a poison debuff. Nice to have that as well. And has a strong version of poison if she has poison sensitivity or the target has poison sensitivity. So Grave Chill goes really well with Frozen Banshee. I have a video, a combo guide on those two champions together if you want to check it out. That's all we have here. Let's go over to High Elves, guys, and take a look at Apothecary. Apothecary to me is my number 3. Yeah, I think it's my number 3 if I was going to rank my top 3 rare champion in the game behind Coldheart and our next champion we'll talk about after this. Apothecary has a great heal on a 2-turn cooldown. Heals a target ally by 35% HP, and the heal can also be critical, again, when booked, a 2-turn cooldown. Not only that, he has the strong version of increased speed on all allies for 2 turns, fills the turn meter of all allies as well by 15% on a 3-turn cooldown. That's a really great ability, especially for a rare champion. It still makes Apothecary a very unique and effective champion, and he has a 3-hitter on his A1 as well. So like Coldheart, you can use this dude to help, chop down the Fire Knight's shield. A 3-hitter on the A1, very valuable, and he has one of the best auras for dungeons for a rare champion. 21% in dungeons, really solid. Apothecary, if you pull him, you're building him. He's that good. You're going to put him in as much speed gear as you possibly can. Concentrate on speed as the number 1 far and away priority on Apothecary. He's all about speed. He's a speed booster. All right. I lied.
I am shocked. Shocked. Well, not that shocked.
We're going to talk about my number 4 rare champion. If I was going to rank them, Reliquary Tender. Man, she's so good. Anybody who doesn't list Reliquary Tender in one of their top rare champions probably has not built her, probably has not used her. She's really, really good. On the A2, she removes all debuffs from all allies and then places a strong version of continuous heal for 2 turns. Tender's Watch is such an incredible ability. It's really good, especially in Dragon, especially in Ice Golem. Any boss who's putting debuffs on you, a full cleanse and a really solid heal to back it up. But there's more. She has a full revival as well on Call to Life on the A3. So a revival rare champion. There's only a few of them out there, but Reliquary Tender is, in my opinion, the best by quite a bit. Reliquary Tender is a champion you can ride all the way until the end game, especially for free-to-play players or non-big spenders in the game. I use Reliquary Tender from time to time. Very useful in Doom Tower 2 with all the debuffs that all these enemies are throwing at you. So Reliquary Tender is champion number 5. I ought to really keep track of the number here. Let's go ahead and make sure we do that throughout the duration of the video. Sacred Order, man. My man Draconis. Draconis is another new champion. He has the heals the ally with the lowest HP by 7.5% of the damage inflicted, which is really solid because he has pretty good multipliers, so he's dealing a significant amount of damage on his A1. And it goes right to the ally who needs it the most, the ally with the lowest HP. On the A2, a nice shield. Shield buff on all allies equal to 15% of this champion's max HP for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown on Sacred Wards. Really solid shield rare champion. Granted, he is void like Reliquary Tender. Attacks one enemy, removes all debuffs from the ally with the lowest HP, and then heals them by 25% of the damage inflicted. Damage is based on HP. Again, a really great ability. You're going to want to make sure you build this dude to have 100% crit rate, because keep in mind, again, the damage inflicted is what is dictating the amount of healage on the champion, okay? So make sure you build him out with a lot of HP and 100% crit rate. So a few honorable mentions here in the Sacred Order, but none who make the list unless I'm missing somebody. The newest of the new, it's Kurzad Deepheart. Kurzad Deepheart is so unique, and the reason he's, top 3 legendary, or feels like a legendary, top 3 rare in the game, is because he has an ability here on his A3 that nobody else in the game has. An increased accuracy buff on all allies for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. That is very, very good. Go ahead and watch my full champion guide on Khazard Depart if you haven't yet, because we get really, really into why he is so unique and so effective and why endgame whale players are investing in building this champion up. Suffice it to say, this ability, Deep Ambush, is incredible. An AoE attack with a debuff and a buff, a unique buff on all allies. And what's more is, on his flailing pick, his A2, he actually puts out some really solid damage. This dude can be your secondary damage dealer, a nuker on your team, on top of the great increased accuracy and the small version of decreased defense. What a beast. Dilgal not as good as Khazard, but a solid new champion add to the game in 2020. On his A2, he attacks all enemies 2 times. He's all about accuracy too, but this time he's placing a decreased accuracy on shot spray, a 2-turn cooldown. He's also attacking all enemies 2 times on this ability. Some people opt to put him in a stun set because you're getting the double chance at hitting everybody, 18% chance times 2 on each target to land those stuns. I know probability doesn't work exactly like that, but you guys get the point. Big Game Hunter attacks 1 enemy 3 times. Each hit has a 40, 50, 65% chance of placing a strong version of decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. Good to use against bosses. So Dilgal actually also puts out a significant amount of damage. Not quite as much damage as Khazard, but still a decent amount of damage on that champion. I'm going to give a quick honorable mention to Avir the Alchemage. Didn't make today's list, but he has a pretty cool fill the turn meter of all allies and heals all allies by 15% of this champion's max HP ability. But that's all we have for dwarves. I do have Diabolos on my top 20. Diabolos, really good. She's all about speed. She has a sleep on the A1, on the A2, attacks all enemies, and then places the big version of increased speed on all allies for 2 turns, again on a 3-turn cooldown. Really important that it's on a 3-turn cooldown. Fills the turn meter of all allies by 15%, decreases the turn meter of all enemies by 15% on positive charge, and that's on a 4-turn cooldown. We always mention this, but it's kind of like a miniature version, a very miniature version of Lysandra, a legendary Spirit Affinity High Elf, her Energize A3 ability. This is kind of the baby version of that, but having the increased speed, AoE on a 3-turn with the positive charge, and I want to call out that she has a very, very high base speed. It's easy to just build her with a ton of speed, and you are going to need accuracy to land the decreased turn meter of all enemies, so keep that in mind when building out your Diabolos. She is also available just to be farmed. You can unlock her in campaign as well, so a very easy champion to get. Speaking of easy champions to get, let's go ahead and talk about one of the easiest to get in War Maiden. War Maiden is still a tremendous debuffer in the game. On her A3, Crumbling Blast, attacks all enemies, has a 100% chance on a 3-turn cooldown when booked of placing a decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. There's only one champion, one rare champion who has a 100% chance of landing decreased defense, big version on a 3-turn cooldown, and there she is, War Maiden, also farmable in campaign, so she deserves to make the list just because of the scarcity of the tools that she's bringing to the table. There's a couple more barbarians who made our list. Soulbound Bowyer, man, I wish she had crazier multipliers in her kit. That's my only kind of nitpick on this champion, because when you look at her kit, you'd think she's insane. You'd think she is a legendary champion, and I mean that. Unfortunately, she's not dealing an insane amount of damage, but certainly a respectable amount of damage, starting with a great campaign farmer, because she has an AoE on her A1 with an additional 25% chance of inflicting a critical hit. Now, all of her abilities has that extra 25% chance of inflicting a critical hit, which is great because you can build her with only a 70% crit rate. That means you should try to get your Soul Bond Bowyer in crit damage gauntlets and find that 70% crit rate from the substats of your other gear. On the A2, ignore 75% of target's defense. If you put her in Savage gear, you're ignoring 100% defense on your Soulbound Bowyer. Or if you go with Helm Smasher Mastery, you have a shot at ignoring 100% defense. On her A3 has a 75, make it 100% when booked on a 4-turn cooldown of fully depleting the target's turn meter. An amazing ability on a very, very respectable kit from Soulbound Boyer. She really does feel like an epic at least, even though she's not, you know, leaving a little bit to be desired in the overall damage multipliers, but still, she's a great champion. Marked has a decreased accuracy, small version on the Punishment of Gods, the A2, but she does have a block debuffs buff on all allies for 1 turn, and an increased defense, big version on a 3-turn cooldown. There's only one other rare champion who has that ability, so totemic power, you guys should note that in your brains if you guys are missing an increased defense champion, especially on a team that you're having trouble progressing with, or a team that has a lot of champions that do damage based on defense. It's necessary that you also have an increased defense champion on those teams to get more damage and more sustainability out of those champions. Let's go ahead and move on here. That's all I have for barbarians. I'm sure I might be missing a couple here. In Demon Spawn, I think I missed somebody. I did. Fellhound probably could be rare number 5 if I was going to rank them. He is the best campaign farmer, certainly in the conversation of best campaign farmers in the game, maybe along with like Saurus and Queen Ava. Attacks all enemies on the A1, has a 35% chance of placing a decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. He's just gonna ravage in campaign. Boom, boom, boom. 6-second campaign farmer. There he goes. On the A3, he has deflect, block damage buff on any ally, for 1 turn. Not bad on a 3-turn cooldown, but more importantly, Flameborn Vigor makes him viable in Fire Knight as well. He has a continuous heal, weak version, and a reflect damage, but check it out. On a 2-turn cooldown, and it lasts for 2 turns. So you can consistently, provided he's fast enough, put a continuous heal and a reflect damage on him, and he's gonna be an absolute beast. If you're using your Fellhound as a campaign farmer, important note here, build him out with like 10 speed, like extra 10 plus 10 speed, but put attack percentage boots on him, because all you need is for him on 12-3 to be faster than Lord Shazar. So you don't have to kill it with the speed if you're only using him for a campaign farmer. Put attack percentage boots and just make sure you're getting that speed to nudge him to be faster than Lord Shazar. I'm glad we kind of caught that miss on Demon Spawn. I'm sure some of you guys are like, what? How could you not have him on your list? So we have a maybe 1 or 2 skinwalkers. We have Greybeard. Greybeard has a provoke on his A1, a 75% chance of landing a provoke on his A1. That's a really high percentage on Greybeard. And on his A2, note that the damage is based off defense, and he actually has a decent defense for a rare champion at 1100. Attacks all enemies, has a 25, 35, 40% chance of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn, and again, damage equal to defense. On the A3, place a shield buff on this champion for 2 turns, has a 100% chance of placing a counterattack buff on this champion for 2 turns. Pause.
What the hell's going on over here?
All right, so why is that so good? Counterattack is going to make him land provoke on everybody every time they attack him, or at least have a great shot, 75% shot at doing so. If you get the Sniper Mastery, it's a tier 5 mastery on the support tree, that's going to bump that up to an 80% chance of landing a provoke, or actually, my bad, Sniper does not affect provoke, so I take that back. Nonetheless, 75% chance is tremendous. His aura also is fantastic. The best defense in dungeons aura for a rare champion at 30%. Greybeard, underrated rare champion to say the least. Let's go ahead and stay here with Narrowhorn. Narrowhorn, another skinwalker who I want to go ahead and include on our list today. Attacks 1 enemy. Damage increases according to how much HP this champion has lost. This attack cannot be strong, critical, or weak hit, so don't have to worry about affinity when facing off against magic affinity champions, but you also are not going to be landing critical hits. So Ram is, well, Ram. He's using his horns, so what can you do? Place a provoke debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. places a 30% increased defense buff on this champion for 2 turns. A 3-turn AoE provoke is unique to Narrowhorn, the best provoke you can find on a rare champion, which is why he belongs on this list. 100% provoke. And then what's going to keep him alive if he's provoking everybody? Well, an unkillable buff on this champion for 2 turns is going to keep him alive on a 3-turn cooldown on Determined. Narrowhorn is a really solid champion. His base stats are nothing to write home about. They're not that good. However, again, the provoke plus the damage increasing according to how much HP he lost. He's always going to be kind of low on HP, so he's going to be doing more damage. And unkillable is not a block damage buff. He's still going to be at 1 HP, right? He's just not going to be dead because of the unkillable, so he's going to be dealing a lot more damage on the A1. Really nice synergy when we talk about kit synergy on Narrowhorn. All right, so who am I missing here? We are missing, okay, Ogren Tribe. Ha, dude, of course, we're missing Bellower. So Bellower makes the list. He has an AoE on every attack and a whole bunch of debuffs. So AoE, great campaign farmer, great, support champion, and a pretty good kind of secondary or third line nuker. Has a block cooldown skills on the A1, on the A2 has a decreased speed, on the A3, a decreased attack and a decreased defense. That is Bellower. You guys are probably familiar with him, but he's one of the best, certainly top 10 rare champion inside the entire game in Bellower. I want to give a big shout out to Gear Grinder. Gear Grinder, a new champion, has an AoE heal all allies by 15% of their max HP on a 3-turn cooldown, and then has a revive a dead ally on a 5-turn cooldown. He does not make my list of the top 20 rare champions in the game. He's new, and I think that people might be overrating him a little bit, but think about it, man. An AoE heal, I think he would probably be 21. I just was looking up and down this list, and I couldn't find one champion who I really wanted to take out to put him in. I'm sure some of you will have a problem with that. Some of you might argue against that, might think maybe, I don't know, the next guy maybe belongs off the list. And the next guy, speaking of the next guy, is Metalshaper. Metalshaper is on the list basically instead of Gear Grinder. And the reason being is because he's really, really good now since the introduction of Doom Tower with Borath the Scarab King. He has a shield buff on a 2-turn cooldown. A 2-turn cooldown means you basically can have that shield buff all the time up on your allies, providing it's not removed, obviously, or you got enough damage to break the shield. However, the 2-turn shield, the consistent shield, is really, really valuable, and it makes Metalshaper a very unique champion inside this game. Has a chance of stealing a buff on the A1. On the A3, removes all debuffs from an ally with the lowest HP, then heals this ally by 20% of this champion's max HP, places a increased defense buff on the target for 3 turns, albeit the small version, but not a bad ability. And I'll tell you what, Rescue is the perfect name for this ability in Metalshaper. Dagger, I just did a guide on her. She's a brand new champion, very, very good. Has a 1 enemy 2-time. Each critical hit decreases the target's turn meter by 4%, so an 8% turn meter reduction on the A1, really solid. Attacks all enemies, and then has a 75% chance of placing a decreased defense for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. You get Sniper, that's an 80% chance of landing the decreased defense. Very, very solid. And unlike War Maiden, you don't have to worry so much about her having a weak affinity matchup against against Spirit champions, so you can use her, for example, in Ice Golem and in Spider as well as your debuffer. And then on her A3, she has attacks 1 enemy and puts the decreased attack. Strong version or weak version, depending if they're under the decreased defense. So having the decreased attack and the decreased defense is really, really good, and she puts out a lot of damage. So a great damage dealer with a great debuffer, a great addition to the game. And last but not least, it is, how did I miss you, my man? It's my boy Doomscreech, the other champion. And when we talked about Marked, we talked about another champion who has the increased defense on all allies for 2 turns and a 30% turn meter fill. That is Doomscreech. Definitely a champion worth looking into that fills the turn meter of all allies by 30%. No other rare in the game has that ability. That's a really strong turn meter boost on a 3-turn cooldown, along with a strong version of increased defense. So he's keeping the team going all at the same time. He's placing the increased defense at a consistent, reliable rate. He also has a very high base HP. I would advise similar to Painkeeper, similar to Draconis. Well, I guess less so with Draconis since he already has the shield. But similar to Painkeeper, this is a great candidate for a shield artifact set for Doomscreech. He has a very high and very well scalable HP at 20k. Attacks all enemies, plays a shield buff equal to 30% max HP on this champion for 2 turns, and damage increases according to this champion's current HP on a 5-turn cooldown, when booked. So again, his damage is also based on HP, and his shield is based on HP. Even more reason to stack more HP on this champion. So there you have it, guys. Those are my top 20 rare champions going into a new year, 2021. Let me know who I left off the list that you're super offended about in the comments below. Stay tuned for the list of epics and legendaries coming in the next few days. Thank you for watching, and as always, take care, guys.